Liverpool transfer news. Alexander Isak boost for Reds as Newcastle agree fee for striker. Liverpool are running out of time to get deals over the line before the summer transfer window slams shut, but have been handed a massive boost in their pursuit of Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak is desperate to join Liverpool. Liverpool are preparing to take on Arsenal in a massive Premier League showdown on Sunday afternoon. But the transfer rumor mill continues to churn as Monday evening's summer window deadline looms. Alexander Isak's situation will be resolved before he joins up with Sweden for international duty next week, though it remains uncertain whether he'll still be at Newcastle come 7 p.m. on Monday, despite his efforts to engineer an exit. But there's been a huge twist in the saga that could pave the way for the goal machine to join the Premier League champions. And there's still the possibility of a last-minute deal for Crystal Palace centre-back Marc Guehi as well, although this largely hinges on how the Eagles get on in their quest to find a replacement for their captain. Here's all the latest transfer news from Anfield, as Arne Slot looks to assemble a squad capable of winning a record-breaking 21st top-flight title and a 7th European Cup. Isak deal unlocked. Nick Woltemade is one of Europe's most talented young strikers. Newcastle are set to break their transfer record and finally sign a striker this summer, after agreeing a £70 million fee with Stuttgart to sign German forward Nick Woltemade. The deal could prove to be a major turning point in the saga involving Isak, who's refused to play after being denied his dream move to Liverpool, but may now be allowed to leave the club. Woltemade, 23, has been heavily linked with a move to Bayern Munich throughout the summer after an impressive campaign with Germany at the Under-21 European Championship and bagging 17 goals for Stuttgart last term. Newcastle have been rejected by multiple attacking options this summer, including Hugo Ekitike, who preferred Liverpool, and Benjamin Sesko and Brian Mbeumo, who both chose Manchester United. But they may have eventually landed a talented prospect to fill Isak's shoes if he departs in the coming days. It's believed Newcastle have struck a deal worth £65 million plus around £4.5 million in add-ons, which would make Woltemade the most expensive player in their history, topping Isak, who cost £63 million in 2022. Isak to speak out. Alexander Isak may finally get his wish. Alexander Isak may be poised to share his perspective on his refusal to turn out for Newcastle and his push for a switch to Liverpool, reports the Mirror. Isak is eager to join the Reds and hopes an agreement can be struck before the transfer window shuts. The 25-year-old ended his silence on the matter last week, issuing a statement claiming Newcastle had reneged on commitments made to him. He said, "I've kept quiet for a long time, while others have spoken. That silence has allowed people to push their own version of events, even though they know it doesn't reflect what was really said and agreed behind closed doors. The reality is that promises were made, and the club has known my position for a long time." Isak has been selected for the Sweden squad for their forthcoming World Cup qualifiers against Slovenia and Kosovo, and according to the Newcastle Chronicle, he's been requested by the Swedish FA to handle press duties. Guehi dilemma. Marc Guehi has just a year left on his Crystal Palace deal. Crystal Palace are bracing themselves for life without Marc Guehi by scouring the transfer market for potential replacements for their skipper. With Guehi in the final year of his contract at Palace, the club recognizes the need to cash in now or face the prospect of losing him for free in a year's time. Liverpool initiated talks to sign the England international on August 12th and remain interested in the 26-year-old centre-back. It's understood Guehi is open to joining the champions, who are looking to bolster their defensive options beyond Virgil van Dijk and Ibrahima Konate. Negotiations stalled earlier this month over the valuation, with Palace demanding £45 million for their star defender, while Liverpool won't exceed £35 million. However, talks are expected to pick up momentum again following Palace's Conference League playoff win against Fredrikstad on Thursday night. Alexander Isak transfer latest as Liverpool given huge boost after agreement reached. Latest Liverpool transfer news as Newcastle close in on Nick Woltemade move, which is said to open door for Alexander Isak exit. Liverpool could be one step closer to signing Alexander Isak after Newcastle agree deal to sign Nick Woltemade. Liverpool may finally have an opportunity to sign Alexander Isak. The Reds could have a chance to return to the negotiation table with Newcastle United as the Magpies reportedly close in on a deal to sign highly rated German forward Nick Woltemade. Earlier this summer, Arne Slot's side saw a £110 million bid swiftly rejected by the Northeast club, as they stood firm in their stance that their record signing was not for sale. Newcastle have had a torrid summer with their desired targets after missing out on Hugo Ekitike and Benjamin Sesko, while their efforts to sign Jon Wissa and Jorgen Strand Larsen continue to hit roadblocks. However, it was reported on Thursday evening that the St. James Park club were closing in on a deal to sign the 23-year-old Stuttgart forward in a move that would see him eclipse Isak to become their record arrival. Newcastle move for Woltemade strengthens Isak's position. Our sister Circle Live have reported that Newcastle are closing in on a deal worth £60.5 million for Woltman. Chief Newcastle correspondent Lee Ryder claims that the move looks certain to end Isak's time in the Northeast, with the door left open for Liverpool to sign the Sweden international. However, the caveat is that the move strengthens their position on the eye-watering asking price for the 25-year-old. Door open for Isak move. Journalist Sasha Tavolieri tweeted that talks are ongoing to sign Isak with the door open to joining Liverpool. He quoted a post from the end of July where he said joining Liverpool had become a target rather than a dream after expressing Isak's desire to leave the club. Isak hopes Newcastle deal can be struck. The Daily Mail's Craig Hope has repeated the claims that Woltemade is closing in on a Premier League move. But he has suggested that Isak's camp are hoping that the signing of the forward will facilitate a move for the striker to complete his switch across England's top flight. Wissa and Strand. Larsen remain targets for Newcastle, it is added, while a third bid for the Wolves striker has not been ruled out by the reporter. Should Newcastle sign two strikers, including the towering German, Isak's British record move to the Premier League champions is very likely to go through. It follows on from reports that Isak stood firm on his desire to leave Newcastle after going on strike following his blocked move. Woltemade move will have huge ramifications on Isak's future. Luke Edwards of The Telegraph says that Woltemade's move has huge ramifications for Isak's future. He claims that the Magpies' hefty fee will offer encouragement to Liverpool to make a second bid for their transfer target, adding that it remains to be seen whether the club's hierarchy will soften their stance on allowing him to leave. But the suspicion is that, naturally, it will. The conditions are said to be set around Liverpool matching their £150 million price tag for his services. However, he claims that the move for the Stuttgart man is viewed as a replacement to Callum Wilson. Liverpool preparing fresh Isak approach. But that stance isn't shared by Ben Jacobs of TalkSport and Give Me Sport. He has claimed that Woltemade is Isak's replacement, and they could still move for Wissa, who is seen as Wilson's successor. It is added that Liverpool are preparing a bid for Isak, but there are no plans to go close to the whopping £150 million fee. Considerable doubts involving Liverpool and Newcastle's Alexander Isak now. Alexander Isak remains intent on leaving Newcastle United for Liverpool during what remains of the summer transfer window. Time, however, is running out for Isak. While things could change very quickly while the transfer window is still open, there are multiple hurdles blocking Isak's move to Anfield. Indeed, Liverpool have not yet bid anywhere near Isak's valuation. Newcastle, meanwhile, do not look any closer to signing adequate replacements. Geordie Bootboys understands that Liverpool will make another bid for Isak, but that really isn't the issue. It's surely all about how much they are willing to pay and how far along Newcastle are in their hunt for replacements. Newcastle value Isak at £150 million, which even for free-spending Liverpool may be prohibitive. Liverpool may not even pay £130 million for Alexander Isak. According to The Times, there are considerable doubts as to whether Liverpool would pay even £130 million for Isak. The report claims that Liverpool simply wouldn't be interested in a deal if the price really was £150 million. They add that £130 million could be considered too much for a player who has made it clear that he wants to leave his current club. Torn, the Newcastle United manager said, they, the owners, are being strong on the valuations of players and on how a player leaves the football club. All of these things are important. They are important on this situation and also the future. Jamie Carragher tells Newcastle to sell Alexander Isak to Liverpool. Former Liverpool defender Jamie Carragher has urged Newcastle to sell Isak to Liverpool. That is not all too surprising given the fact Carragher is a Liverpool supporter, having played for the club for his entire career. However, Carragher appeared to be speaking from experience rather than as a Red supporter. He compared Isak's situation to that of Fernando Torres, who ended up staying at Liverpool in the summer of 2010, despite wanting to leave. Eventually, he left for Chelsea in January 2011, and Carragher says that it was a relief the Spaniard had gone at that point. "I think Newcastle should sell Isak," he said. "The reason I say that is because there will be so many people outside of Newcastle telling Newcastle and Eddie Howe what they have to do. You've got to be strong. You've got to show in the future that players can't just come in and demand to go." But they don't have the problem of Isak every day. They don't have the problem Eddie Howe has every press conference going in there and getting asked questions about it. It's a cloud over the club constantly. The reason I say it is because I've got experience of it. We had this with Fernando Torres at Liverpool, where he didn't really want to be at the club. He ended up staying, and we sold him in the January. That 4 or 5 months was a nightmare for the club, and everybody at the club couldn't wait for him to move on. Liverpool to submit new bid for Mark Guehi with agreement in principle already sealed. Crystal Palace defender Mark Guehi has been linked with a move to Liverpool. Liverpool are set to submit a new bid to sign Crystal Palace defender Mark Guehi before the transfer window shuts next week, according to reports. The Reds have already been very active in the summer transfer window, with Hugo Ekitike, Florian Wirtz, Jeremy Frimpong, Milos Kerkez, and Giovanni Leoni headlining their new signings. But Liverpool are far from done ahead of Monday's transfer deadline, with Liverpool likely to make further moves for Newcastle United striker Alexander Isak and Crystal Palace defender Guehi. Last week, transfer expert Fabrizio Romano revealed that a deal for Guehi is absolutely on after speculation over a move to Liverpool had died down in recent weeks. Romano said on his YouTube channel, "Crystal Palace would love to keep Mark Guehi. Chairman Steve Parish has said if he wants to sign a new contract, he can stay. But Guehi has a clear intention to not sign any new deal and to try a new chapter. And that new chapter for Guehi is Liverpool. We have to see if Liverpool and Palace can agree on a deal this summer. The two clubs are still talking. The deal for Guehi is absolutely on." You remember what I told you 2 weeks ago? Giovanni Leoni and Guehi. That remains the case. Liverpool want to sign both. Will they be able to reach an agreement with Palace? We will see, but the conversation is still ongoing. So the Guehi deal is on for Liverpool to get a new defender for Arne Slot in these final days of the transfer window. Romano gave an update on Wednesday. He added on X, "Understand Liverpool remain in active talks to sign Mark Guehi immediately. LFC are ready to pay over £30 million now to get the deal done. But it depends on Crystal Palace. If Palace find replacement and let him go, Guehi already said yes to the Reds." And now Italian journalist Nicolo Schira insists that Liverpool are readying a new bid to try to sign Guehi before the transfer deadline next week. Schira wrote on X, "Liverpool are set to submit to Crystal Palace a new bid to try to sign Mark Guehi, who has already an agreement in principle with the centre-back for a contract until 2030. Transfers LFC CPFC, Iror Kostas Tsimikas, is one player who is set to leave Anfield before the transfer deadline, after being pushed down the pecking order at left-back behind Kerkez and Andy Robertson. On Tsimikas' future, Schira added, "Konstantinos Tsimikas wants to play more, and so is ready to leave Liverpool and joining AS Roma on loan. Talks are progressing well in the last hours. Roma want to add an option to buy in the deal. Ready for the Greek left-back a contract until 2029, 1+3. Transfers LFC." Newcastle fans warn don't just believe what they are told about Liverpool target Alexander Isak. Alexander Isak has been training away from the Newcastle first team since he told the club he would never play for them again. But Joleon Lescott has urged fans to not just believe the striker has refused to train. Alexander Isak has expressed a desire to leave Newcastle this summer. Joleon Lescott has urged supporters to not just believe that Alexander Isak has withdrawn himself from Newcastle training to force through a move to Liverpool. Following his declaration in July that he wished to explore new opportunities, Isak has become caught up in an increasingly acrimonious dispute. The 25-year-old is determined to leave before the transfer window closes on Monday and has informed Newcastle he will not represent them again. Talks with the Reds have reached an impasse since their $147 million offer was rejected this month. Isak expressed his frustrations on the evening of the Professional Footballers Association award ceremony, stating promises have been broken. Since the controversy erupted, he has been training separately from Eddie Howe's first team. But former Manchester City and Aston Villa defender Lescott has advised supporters to view Isak's training ground separation with skepticism. Boss Howe has made it evident that Isak cannot participate in his first team sessions due to the dispute, though he and the club have emphasized that the Swede will be welcome back when he is prepared, reports the Mirror. This prompts questions about Isak and whether he has similarly declined to train with his Newcastle teammates, just as he has stated he doesn't wish to play alongside them. Isak is currently training separately. In a chat with Carlton Cole and Olivia Buzaglo on All Out Footballs in the Mixer, brought to you by Sky Bet, Lescott revealed, "I don't know that has happened, Isak refusing to train. It's been documented, but I also know I've been at clubs where teams have told players they cannot train. So don't just believe that Isak has said he doesn't want to train, and that is it. If he weren't good enough and they didn't want him, they'd be saying, don't come in. I was told at Villa I couldn't train with the first team for no reason at all. I would just try and go train with the reserves. I would have stayed at Villa, but because they said that to me, I was like, I can't come in and train with the reserves. I need to play." It's reported that discussions have taken place between Newcastle chairman Yasser Al-Rumayyan and Isak, with the club trying to negotiate a deal that would see the forward return to the squad content. Earlier this month, Isak rejected a new contract offer from the Magpies, and Lescott has stated that if Newcastle wishes to retain their star striker, they must compensate him in line with the rumored £150 million valuation they've placed on him. It's business, and from a business perspective, if with Isak you want a certain amount of money, you haven't got it. If you value him at a certain amount, you have to pay him the amount you value, Lescott continued. You can't say you want a certain sum of money and then keep him on the money he is on. You can't have it both ways. Should Isak be unable to secure an agreement with Newcastle and fail to complete a switch to Liverpool, he might find himself in an uncertain position. Nevertheless, Lescott believes the 25-year-old won't suffer from a brief hiatus, having predictably not appeared for Newcastle this campaign. It's not going to do him any harm physically, Lescott replied, when questioned about Isak's absence from action. Sharpness maybe, but the love of the game will come back, and regardless of who it is for, in 6 weeks, he's going to want to play.